In the words of one of the Royal Botanic Garden Edinburgh's former Regis keepers, the George Forrest collection is, without exaggeration, a tremendous affair. I imagine he was referring to Forrest's herbarium specimens, of which around 31,000 are held at RBGE, or his countless plants introduced to this country over the course of his 7 plant collecting trips to Yunnan in South China during the first 3 decades of the 20th century. But for me, as RBGE's archivist, it's his collection of papers, letters and photographs held in the library collection at RBGE that I find absolutely fascinating. George Forrest was born in Falkirk in 1873. He began working in our herbarium in 1903 and first went to China a year later. If you want to find out about him, you can read one of his obituaries and you'll discover his many achievements there, the variety of plants he collected, and likely his miraculous escape from hunters who, in 1905, angry at Western interference in their lives, land and faith, tracked him through the valleys of the Mekong intent on his murder. But if you really want to get to know George Forrest, you need to read his letters. That's when you can experience the magic of archives. That's when Forrest ceases to be a historic figure and, in a way, comes back to life. He could almost be in China right now writing these words. Forrest's letters describe the harsh conditions he has to tolerate, from the weather either being too hot or too cold, to the insect life in the river valleys being both vigorous and troublesome. He tells of creatures with inconveniently long legs plunging suddenly into one's soup, and great caterpillars arriving in his blankets with the businesslike air of a guest who means to stay. He tells stories he's heard, like the one about how the goddess of mercy formed the mountains and lake around the town of Dali by tricking the local dragon using her cloak and lame dog, and a little bit of magic. He describes the problems involved in taking photographs of flowers with a camera that uses glass plate negatives and long exposures when it's raining or blowing a gale, resulting in the plants quivering continuously. For the cultivation of patience before anything, he says, I recommend photography of alpines in Yunnan. Forrest's photographs show China as it was at the start of the 20th century, with impressive walls and gates around towns, death-defying river crossings using ropes and sliders, and many of the characters he meets along the way. In January 1932, a heart attack ended Forrest's life among the hills and valleys of China that he loved so much, but his story continues and his memory remains alive thanks to his words and pictures being preserved within the collections of the Royal Botanic Garden Edinburgh's library.